I would like to start sort of high-level state of affairs, ad industry, and like with you, Sheryl, kind of what advertisers are coming to Facebook specifically today, like what they really are asking for, and like how that has maybe changed in the 5 years since, or a few years since y'all have been public, but really like what big brands and advertisers are coming asking you guys for.
Well, let me start by saying how honored I am to share the stage with you, and especially with two business leaders I deeply admire who run amazing companies, have been great partners, Mary and Mark. So thank you guys for being here. It's a nice day to ask the question, which is because we are announcing that we have 4 million advertisers today, up from just 3 million just in March. And that's obviously the largest marketers and businesses in the world, all the way to the smallest. And I think what's happening is that businesses can see where consumers are spending their time, and people have moved to mobile. This is the fastest adoption of a consumer communications technology the world has ever seen. The average US smartphone user is checking their smartphone 150 times a day on average. And if anyone is a teenager, you know it can be more than that. I saw Arianna Huffington say on Jon Stewart that 20% of Americans are checking their phones during sex. I'm not even saying it's true. I'm just saying I saw it. But we know that people are on their phones all day. And so if you need to reach them the way Mark does, the way Mary does, explaining your cars, explaining your products, explaining your services, you have an opportunity to do that all day. And that's why businesses have moved. For the largest clients in the world and the largest businesses, we have a Super Bowl every day on the US and mobile alone. So it's a great opportunity to do the broadest marketing you can, but also connect in a more targeted way. For small businesses, and that's where we get numbers like 4 million, building a web page is really hard. A third of American small businesses don't even have a web page. Building a mobile presence, a mobile app, is even harder. And so Facebook has become, I think, and Instagram, the mobile solution for businesses of all sizes. And that's the primary shift we're seeing and we're focused on.
Now, I'd love to know, just for Mark and Mary, how that has really changed. Ad buying in general has really changed for y'all. Now, obviously, TV, print, radio have been mainstays of the ad industry for a long time, but as the rise of Facebook and Snapchat, Twitter, have come along, how do you really sort of look at budgets now and really take into consideration how you're going to dole that money out?
I can get started.
Yeah.
Again, also thank you, Sheryl. You've been a long-standing partner, and it's great to meet Mary and be on stage with her. I so admire everything that you do, which is really incredible. So here's how we think about it. And the world has changed so dramatically over literally the past 10 years, because what we now have is half the world, is attached to the internet and can access the internet. More than half the world have a mobile phone. A third of those can reach the internet. There is so much technology out there: search, social, mobile, chat, whatever the case may be. In addition to TV, radio, print, all those other activities, we actually start to step back and think about it as a wide creative canvas on which to paint our brand masterpiece. So what we have to do is we have to really identify how do consumers engage with every single platform, and then what is the creative experience that we need to give them so they can engage with our brands. But it also has to look like one brand, because you have 5,000 ads that are coming at people every single day, which is 10x what it was just 10 years ago. So with that in mind, what we have to do is paint across the whole canvas, tailor the creative so it works in every platform, but do it in a way where it looks like the whole brand. And that's how you allocate your media. The media is not allocated in any one place. You have to look at it on the basis of how consumers are behaving. It might sound simple, but it can be a little bit difficult. We make products like toilet paper and toothpaste and shampoos and things that people really are thinking about a lot,
Sexy product.
It's really sexy product. I mean, just right up there with beer and cars and other stuff. It's just so amazing that everybody's thinking about it. In reality, nope, you're not. You're thinking about it for about 2 seconds. But what you have to have is our brands have to be top of mind. They have to be top of mind because they use it every day and they purchase it very frequently. So when they're at that stage, when they're ready to buy, our brand has to pop in their head, which is why we need mass reach, but across all these different platforms. And that's the way we think about it.
Mary, how about you?
Yeah, when we look at it, I mean, clearly having strong brands is critically important. We have 10 major automotive brands around the world. Each of them has a purpose. So it's really targeting and looking, how do we tell that brand story? How do we, have a relationship? Because although, a car is something that people have a very emotional connection to, the buying cycle isn't daily or weekly. It's over a course of years. So how do we stay relevant, keep people engaged in the brand, the customer experience? And I think one of the ways is also making sure we expose the vehicles to new people. And so it's when you're in market, because I think what we're seeing is people want to consume and want to learn on their own terms when they're ready. And so I think that's one of the ways that mobile is really helping. We can tell a broader story about, the vehicle and all the different facets. We can target the special, whether they're, into performance with a Corvette or into safety or electrification with the Bolt EV. And so it really provides the ability to tell multiple stories very effectively to those who are interested.
So how do you scale that sort of, you're talking about having a similar message or at least sort of cohesiveness across different platforms, whether that's TV or radio or digital. I just wonder how that really scales and how you can make that work without, can you just sort of plug one thing into the same or, how do you sort of do that or really spend enough time to customize it it just seems difficult to do that in a scalable way.
Well, at the end of the day, what you have to do is you have to start with what is the creative idea for the brand. What does the brand stand for? How are you going to bring that brand to life? What's the performance benefit? What are the features of the product? And then what's the personality of the brand as well, which is very important. So you need an idea. But then when you get that idea, what you have to do is then think about, okay, how am I going to express this idea in a 30-second ad, which can tell a complete story? And then how am I going to express this idea in a how-to video? How am I going to express this idea in maybe a point of view about the environment or about gender equality or about a social issue? And then how am I going to express this ad in a mobile context? For example, a newsfeed where you have 2 seconds. So what you have to do is think of the idea, and that's why we call it a canvas, a creative canvas, and then find ways to draw that down to the expression. Tide's a great example. Tide has 30-second ads, 15-second ads, 5-second ads. Here's some ads that we have on the news feed on Facebook that you see up here. And we literally are thinking we have about 1.7 seconds, actually, for it to really work. So if it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide. There's a way to get your stains out. Okay, that's one example. And then the other one is an example of our Tide Pure Clean, which is our BioPure sustainable product.
And when you think about it, what we're looking for, and Carolyn Everson, our amazing head of global partnerships, says this well, thumb-stopping creative. On a mobile phone, on newsfeed, you're moving. Will your thumb stop and will you pay attention? And so you have to take those messages and you have to make them pop early and often. So when you think about the arc of a longer ad, sometimes you'll get to the story at the end. This, you have to flip it. But we've seen great examples, and to share an example from a whole nother industry, Sony, for its recent movie Money Monster, did an ad campaign where they took their trailer, which was a good trailer, and they had obviously put a lot of time into it. They put it on Facebook. They put a new 5-second intro, which really grabbed attention, and they optimized the format. And then they did the A/B testing, and compared to the original trailer, that Facebook optimized trailer lifted intent to see that film amongst their target demographic by 5 times. And so it shows that you start with an idea, you start with what you're trying to communicate, but then you have to adapt for the different platforms. The first TV ads were people standing at mics reading radio ads.
Yeah, we had 2 minutes too. It was beautiful thing. 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
But you can do it.
You can.
And you've shown you can do it. I mean, there was another example I love from P&G of Old Spice.
Old Spice.
The two are
great one. If you pop up, we have a couple of our male brands. One with Gillette. Gillette is pretty simple. It's flexible razor. It shaves closer, even on curves. That's pretty simple. You get that pretty quick. And then there's Old Spice, which is about ridiculous masculinity. It's ridiculous, and it works.
Yeah. But you're communicating, if you look at these ads, you're communicating something quickly in a way that engages people with sound off or on,
Right.
which just shows it's possible. Because what we need to do is adapt the creative format for the platforms that we're working in, and they're doing a great job.
Yep.
Can you do longer form though on mobile, or I mean, is that like, are we just sort of like, do we just sort of have to be accepting of this? Okay, this is the 2 or 3 seconds mode, or is there possibility for keeping that attention longer, doing longer stuff?
Oh, we see everything. I mean, think about just the basic metamorphosis and, technological improvement. Everyone in this audience, 3 years ago, if you tried to watch a mobile ad or video or anything mobile on your phone, it was going to buffer and annoy you, and you were going to click off and do something else. Now, you can take a really beautiful video. What used to take camera crews, we can all do it. And you can watch something and it doesn't buffer and it doesn't annoy you. So I think the possibilities are endless, and I think we're going to see the very, very full range. When we work with marketers, it's not that there aren't opportunities to tell longer stories. It's often that capturing that attention causes the thumb to stop to get people engaged into the longer stories, and that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, I agree. When, one of the things we had a lot of fun with when we launched the Chevrolet Colorado was it was really the start of the Real People, Not Actors, but it was bringing in focus groups and spending a lot more time, but we had to get people to that. And I think, but once you engage people and they say this is something, and humor becomes a different tool that I think is different than, not in print or harder in print, not as much in from an advertisement traditional TV, but on mobile you can use a lot to really kind of build your brand and the emotions that are attached to your brand using humor, and that was a lot of fun with the Chevrolet Colorado, which really was the foundation for what we're doing across all mediums with Real People, Not Actors.
You can also bring a global audience in. So one of the things I love that Mary and GM did just this past year is they unveiled one of their cars, the Chevy Bolt EV, on Facebook. That's a pretty big change. I mean, cars, as I understand it, get unveiled at car shows, where car enthusiasts can come, but not everyone can come. And did this at CES, showed this beautiful 360 video of the interior.
Yeah, it was, it really worked out to be a perfect medium to launch the Bolt EV. We were at SEMA, so it was a technology message, and we reached a much wider audience and we were, I think, the first use of Facebook 360, because that's another thing that I think is really important from a General Motors perspective. As we started to build a relationship with Facebook, we knew we had to learn, we had ideas, and it's really the collaboration and the transformation that's going on between our two teams that we view it as a partnership as we go forward to really tell the story. And, there's aspects, one of the things I said to Cheryl early on is I said, if you have a new idea, I want to be first. I want to use it first. And Facebook 360 was a great example, and it worked out as an extremely effective way to show the world the Bolt EV.
And it takes something that normally just car enthusiasts could go to a specific car show and get that first view, and brought it to everyone. So it was really speaking to a global audience. And it was, you can see, a great experience. You feel like you're in the car.
Well, yeah, and more, usually when you do a reveal at an auto show, it's very hard to people to actually see the interior, which is a critical part of why people buy cars in the purchase decision. So the ability to really give the 360 in a relatively quick fashion was very important. So it was a huge success.
Were you talking about the relationship with Facebook and that sort of changing over time? I'd love to know, and I'll probably ask you too, Mark, but how that has changed for GM over the past 3-4 years. There was a remarkable moment, I would say, when GM was questioning the efficacy of Facebook ads. Particularly interesting timing before the IPO. And then, but now you guys are it seems like you're really bullish. How has that sort of changed, like how you really treat Facebook ads over time, or what have you how has that changed for you, that relationship?
Yeah, I think as we looked and learned, and I think there were maybe some early statements made that weren't necessarily representative of exactly where the whole company was. So as we looked and started to build the relationship anew, we want to make sure that it's metric driven, and we're choosing the right channel, because we're still using multiple channels. But how can we be most effective for the dollar invested in communicating with consumers around the world? And I think that's the way we started the conversation and continue continued to build on it. And again, it truly is a transformative partnership. And that's something at General Motors that is across many of our partners, which, and frankly, one of the company's values is relationships matter, which hasn't always been the case at General Motors, but it's been a core value for the last, I'll say, four plus years. And those partnerships are important as we go forward.
And Mark, the sort of a similar question, but just how y'all have thought about what a Facebook ad looks like for you. And again, a few weeks ago, there was sort of questions on targeting and like what sort of, how important targeting is for a P&G versus a different company. How do you think about how important that is?
Well, I think it's important to talk about our relationship with Facebook, and it's very similar to what Mary just said around relationships, and we call them actually partnerships. And one of our first partnerships was with Facebook. We call it a joint business partnership because what we're trying to create is joint value in service of the consumer and the users. Our relationship started about 10 years ago. We were one of the first. We did a Crest White Strips ad on college campuses, and I think it, maybe reached 9,000 people. But
but it was a lot at the time.
It was good a lot at the time, yeah, because we didn't have any users. And fast forward a couple years later, we said, look, the digital world is changing so rapidly. We need to create these partnerships. We want to do. This is how we work with our retailers and other suppliers. Went out to Facebook. They had about 100 million users. I remember Mark was at the meeting. Didn't say a word, by the way. He just sat at the end of the table, and we all stared at him and thought, "Wow!" And then, but then go on a couple more years later, they hit 250 million users, and I remember this so well.
I remember this
because I literally called Cheryl up. I had met Cheryl at an ad council meeting just before she'd gone over to Facebook, and I said, Cheryl, you're at 250 million users now. You're getting really interesting.
Yeah, and on the other end of the phone, I was like, oh my God, Mark Pritchard says we're interesting. The largest marketer in the world wants to talk to us. But it was a big moment for us of saying, wow, we're going to be able to serve big brands, and we're going to have to work hard to earn that ability to do it.
And the reason why you were interesting is because now you had become a mass reach vehicle. So you had the potential for mass reach. Now, we didn't know how to do this yet. Because what we decided to do, and we actually went to our leadership group, Cheryl came and spoke, and we said, let's everybody get a Facebook page. Every brand, get a Facebook page, and let's start accumulating fans. We accumulated fans, but the most we could accumulate was 10 million. And that was, most of them were like 1 or 2 million. We said, this isn't going to do. We can get that, one night on The Voice, we can get that many users.
Right.
So we said, we need you all to start thinking about an ad model. And we started working on an ad model, and I have to say, our first forays into this were mostly posts. We built a reach tool with them, so it was a great partnership on how to reach. And some of our stuff was crap. I mean, it was just really bad. I remember once, we were thought conversation was what it was about, And I remember we had a Cinco de Mayo enchiladas and beans post from Pantene.
Was it a bean smelling hair?
No. There was no hair in it.
Okay.
There was no, and then we had the Always Squirrel in Mexico. So we're not really sure what that was about as a promotion.
Experimental.
Suffice it to say, we said, we have to get better at this. We need to create advertising that works on the platform. So they helped, and actually we created this joint, we call it a Genius Academy, Facebook Genius Academy, with our friends like Ilanka and Carolyn, where we could learn how it would work with the consumer, with the user. Eventually we said, video, we love video. I mean, we were in TV back in the 1950s, and the largest advertiser, they came up with a video, but we had to learn how to make the video work to where there's long form, where you can share often, or you can connect and grab people in the first 5 seconds, but then they're willing to go into it. But most importantly, it's the fact that it's thumb stopping. You got to find the 2-second brand and benefit that's going to get the reach. So it has been a great partnership. So the question you asked about the article that was written, which was, the headline was technically accurate, but a little misleading. If you read the article, what it said is what we were doing is we wanted to get more reach. We asked Facebook, how much reach can we get on your platform? They said, here's how much you can get. We said, how much are we getting? They said this, we said this. So why is that? We looked at it and said, we were making choices on targeting that were too narrow. in some cases. In some cases, it was great. So we said, look, let's open it up. Let's get more reach. So now we can get 70, 80 million users. And when we want to be targeted, even more precisely, we do that. When we want to target, the question of targeting is this. It's not if, it's how many. Every audience is a target. So you need to think about how many are you targeting. If you want to reach all category buyers of toothpaste, it's almost everybody. If you want to reach pregnant women in their first trimester, it's a much narrower target. So it's not if, it's how many. And that's what we've learned and how we combine and work with Facebook and our partners.
And I imagine
Well, it's been great for us in the sense that that's really what we offer. We have a Super Bowl on mobile every day in the U.S. alone. So if you want to do the biggest, broadest brand campaign, you can, and you can also go all the way through. And I think most platforms don't offer that kind of choice. And so we're going to iterate back and forth. There's one, I know Mary's headed to Germany later this week, and one of my favorite recent examples of targeting is from Opel, which is a GM brand. And what the campaign did is, they targeted 3 different groups of consumers, people who are very interested in safety, people who are business leaders, and people who are tech enthusiasts. And they created 3 different creative videos against those 3 and ran those. And for 7% of their budget, we returned 56% of their media, of their impressions. And that was a big deal. And that's because it really worked and it was targeted. And so that's an example of kind of intermediate targeting, right? It's not everyone, but it's not, is someone playing? No, someone's playing it. But there are all kinds of options for targeting. I think people, just like we have to get used to the new formats, we have to get used to all the different options which can be used on the platform.
Right. I also think, there's targeting for the specific time and purpose in life, but I also think a great example, too, is when you went from like to love, and, we participated that with the Chevrolet Malibu. It was an all-new vehicle, but it really, that is a brand. It's a family brand. This was an all-new vehicle, really targeted at with the features, with safety, and just being able to do that